I've talked tirelessly on this channel about superhero content. From movies to television, Daredevil to Batman, I've said my fair share on the superhero genre, and it's time for me to take a break. No more superheroes. For now. With all that being said, let's talk about a real-life superhero. The Rock! The former college star turned professional wrestler turned megastar actor is all over the place with billion-dollar movies, franchise-leading roles, selling water, gym shoes, getting you to buy Ford products, smiling for every camera, and looking like, well, a superhero. Focus! However, with all that popularity, all the big blockbusters the man is in front of, it's always left me questioning why no one ever gives credit to some of his other films. For this reason, and really just having an excuse to talk about The Rock, I give you The Rock Month! Hit it, Johnny! The first episode for The Rock Month is probably one of his best films to date, The Rundown, or Welcome to the Jungle? What the hell? No, we're calling it The Rundown.
This is all mine. It's all me. It's all mine. This is all me.
The film, released in 2003, was directed by Peter Berg and written by James Vanderbilt. Wait a minute. We meet again, Mr. Vanderbilt. The action-adventure comedy would ultimately underperform, making $80 million back on its $85 million budget. The Rundown is one of the few films I'm surprised Hollywood abandoned. Sure, the film underperformed, and ultimately, that's all that matters. However, the film received strong critic scores and audience scores. The Rundown has great action set pieces, great chemistry between The Rock and Stifler himself, Sean William Scott. It's also one heck of an adventure movie in the vein, loosely, of Indiana Jones. More like National Treasure, but whatever. The Rundown follows The Rock's character, Beck, a retrieval expert. He's a bounty hunter that retrieves debts from people who owe to his boss, Billy. Billy sends Beck out to a small mining town in Brazil to retrieve his son, Travis, played by Sean William Scott. Travis is searching for the priceless golden artifact, O Gato di Diablo. This search has gathered the attention of the film's antagonist, Hatcher, played by the infamous Christopher Walken.
Gotta have more cowbell.
Hatcher wants the priceless artifact and he won't stop until he gets it.
Apparently, young Mr. Walker may have stumbled onto a trinket of some value, and as he's located it in my jungle, yep, I'm gonna need him to lead me to it.
The Rundown marks Dwayne Johnson's second acting debut behind the Scorpion King. For his efforts, he was paid a handsome $12 million.
Hello, I like money.
An impressive feat for a man only in his second leading role, again, coming off the Scorpion King. Regardless, the money was well worth it as the film relies so heavily on Johnson's charisma and gravitas.
Oh no. I hate this place.
While some might be used to Johnson's antics as Hobbs from the Fast and the Furious franchise,
I will beat your ass like a Cherokee drum.
he's actually restrained as Beck.
I'll take option C.
Travis, there is no option C.
Beck is a fascinating character in the fact that the script, again written by James Vanderbilt, doesn't give the character a full-on backstory. Beck is spelled out with subtle and not so subtle hints, such as his want to own his own restaurant.
He says it's good. It's got to be good. He's the best chef I know.
Pea risotto with basil and mint. What are you, a chef?
None of your business. Give me the book back.
He also alludes several times to his training, like his many instances of giving his opponents a choice,
I need you to make a choice for me.
rather than an ultimatum.
Now, Noah, you got two choices. Option A, you give me the ring. Option B, I make you give me the ring.
This is a sly, subtle hint to military law enforcement training. Beck also fights otherworldly, heavily relying on his ability to fight hand-to-hand rather than by gun. Again, it isn't clearly said why Beck doesn't like guns, beyond bad things happen when he uses them.
Oh yeah, I forgot. You don't use guns.
The movie doesn't over-explain Beck's character because, in all honesty, it wouldn't benefit the actual plot. Johnson's chemistry with Scott is really the selling piece for the film.
Don't even look at me. Look over there. And I will take you back. clear?
Yeah. We'll both probably be dead in about an hour.
If you want to keep on going, you're just gonna have to carry me, and I guarantee I'm gonna pee on your head.
You threatening me? You threatening me with pee?
Yeah, if you don't let me pee here.
Scott's character is hell-bent on finding the gato, which requires him to remain in Brazil. Beck just wants to get his job done and go home. Eventually, the MacGuffin that is the gato requires both characters to show their humanity, with Scott's character giving up on the gato and Johnson staying to fight Hatcher. Speaking of Hatcher, we need to have a moment. A beautiful moment dedicated to Christopher Walken. This man is a national treasure, and I mean it from the deepest points in my heart.
Why come to me?
When I'm a guest in another man's house, I don't reach into his refrigerator without asking permission.
Hatcher isn't an interesting bad guy by any means. His entire means of existing is simply being in control of the mining operations in this tiny town in Brazil. He isn't groundbreaking, but Walken spends every moment spicing up what other actors might have made into a boring character.
I paid you.
Well, fortunately, I had my fingers crossed the whole time.
This would be Peter Berg's, the film's director, second film on what would be a relatively long, successful career in Hollywood. Berg's filmography includes Friday Night Lights, The Kingdom, Hancock, Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon, and the board game turned to live-action filmed Battleship. Berg, while definitely not at the top of Hollywood's talent pool for directors, shows a keen eye for directing action, and The Rundown might be his best film. The Rundown sports some of the best action sequences in the early 2000s. Scenes have a great oomph to them, thanks to the choreography and excellent sound design. Berg himself said that he wanted action scenes to hurt, and they definitely had that impact. The Rundown is also equipped with some of the early 2000s and even today's action cliches, including frequent quick cuts and the reliance on rock music. Some of the action scenes could have benefited from a few wide shots to put the action on full display. The film's final act, which probably involves the majority of the film's budget, is an almost entire action scene in a Brazilian town. It's The Rock being, well, The Rock, shooting guns, smashing people, and smashing buildings. You can't watch this scene and not want to shoot up some steroids, drive a diesel truck, and drink Red Bull. This isn't to say the film isn't without issues. One of the more interesting elements established in The Rundown is Travis's deep knowledge of the gato. This creates a bit of an interesting Indiana Jones theme that the movie plays around with. However, outside of one interesting cave scene and a few shots hiking, you don't really ever get that exploration feel that something even like a national treasure manages to accomplish. This can also be in part to one of the film's strengths, playing as a negative, the runtime. The Rundown is 104 minutes and moves ever so briskly. Perhaps pushing the film to 2 hours would have allowed for some more cave dwelling or archaeology scenes to be added. The Rundown falls into a category of tragic films I don't think will ever get a sequel. While The Rundown does have a devoted fan base now, it did only make less than its rather large budget. Safe to say, getting The Rock back on board, Hollywood's largest movie star, the film's budget will be more extensive this time around. Berg had made mention in promotion of his latest film, Mile 22, of a sequel taking place in Alaska.
And we had a script written, but the script was written in Alaska in the frozen, really, really cold weather.
However, that idea was thrown out with Berg saying, we might see a sequel one day.
We might see another Rundown one day.
Because
The Rundown is the perfect weekend action movie.
What?
Option A is still on the table. You can walk away right now.
Option A doesn't work for me.
It won't offend anyone, it's not ridiculously violent, and the story between action set pieces isn't careless. Enough things are going on that you care about characters going into each awesome action spectacle. The film did deserve a bit more than it finished with. Hopefully we get a sequel one day.